any too much trouble, but I think we did a pretty good job. But I think people hear a story about kids on sets and things like that, and it's just a nightmare, running around and all that, but I wish I was on those sets. Those sound like fun. But it was a well-run thing.
What is it that you all remember? Yeah.
Well, I was just really, like Ryan and I were a similar age, and everybody in that small group of kids that does a lot of work in the business, you all read for everything. I mean, if it's a 14-year-old cool kid or whatever, we're all going to read for that role. So we know each other for years, or auditioning and working on each other's shows, and it was really just, hey, you have an audition for this new movie that's coming out. Here's the role. Call back, same audition process. It changes as it goes through sometimes. And I think Fred talks about Fred Decker, the co-writer director, talks about the casting element of it a little bit better because he was in the whole thing of it. I just know my one part from being a young actor going in and reading the lines and getting the movie, which was you almost do this every day. Is what I was trying to say. Is you read for stuff all the time. And this business is really 99% projection. You read for 100 things and you get one of them. So if you're insecure, stay out.
I walked in and it was Shane Black and Fred sitting behind the desk. And they're like, "You ready?" I said, "Sure." And Shane had a pack of marbles in his pocket. And I was like, "Can I grab one of those?" He said, he looked over at Fred. Fred was like, "The character smokes, so I guess give him a cigarette, give the 15-year-old kid a smoke." So I grabbed it and I lit it up and I did my scene and I walked out. I was like, "I got that." Yeah, they called me the next day. Like, wardrobe tomorrow.
I came in. There was an executive producer by the name of Peter Hyams. And when I walked in, he said to me, "You know why you're here?" I said, "Yeah, the role of the father." He said, "No, that's not why you're here. The reason you're here is that my wife loves you. You just did a series called The American Dream, in which I played the father of a whole family in Chicago, in the suburbs, and it was at the time in the 80s when there was a big gasoline crunch and people had to pull back economically. We moved into the inner city. And it was a short-lived series, but a very critically acclaimed series called The American Dream. He said, "You're here because my wife loves you and you are the father. It's your part. You want it?" I said, "Sure, let's do it." That was it.
You want to come here just as...
How hard was it for you to actually get into the acting business? Everybody does it so far. How was it?
Well, I was too young to even know that it was hard. I just kind of wanted to perform. Since I was like 5, I was always like singing or on stage. I was doing something. And then eventually I asked my mom, "Is there anything like, can I do this professionally? Can you help me? Will you take me to the thing?" And so, yeah, she took me to an open casting call for a show called Kids Incorporated. And it was like 5,000 kids, and I sang. I did Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. It was I had 45 of that song without the lyrics. I brought that with me so I could sing along to it. And yeah, I did like 4 or 5 auditions, and then my mom came to pick me up at school one day, and she's like, "You got that TV show. You're gonna have to." I was like, "Okay." So I don't really, it wasn't that it was easy for me, but it was, it wasn't, the struggle that like guys go through now to get, into the business. I know it's very hard to do, especially right now.
It kind of similar. I was very young when I started, 5, 6 years old, doing commercials and, guest spots and things like that. Mostly a lot of commercials when I was kind of first. It was different for me because I had an older sister that had done a lot of work in the 70s and early 80s. And so I was always around it because she worked and I was on the set as a very, even younger than 5 and 6. So I was kind of around it when I started working around it. I just was around it and then started auditioning myself and doing stuff. The funny thing is movie fans kind of know, but a film my sister was in was a little thing called The Towering Inferno. And she was the little girl in The Towering Inferno. And she's, so she got saved by Paul Newman and Jennifer Jones. And, it's around. So I was actually on that set because I was like 1 year old, 1 year old when they shot that. So OJ held me, by the way, he's in that movie. So I made it out fine. But that was cool. I wish I got to hang out with Paul Newman more, but I didn't know who he was. But it's so it's just like it's one of those progression things. And like I said, when you're younger, so then I was really kind of in it full force because we were both auditioning all the time. And sometimes as brother and sister, you go in and you would audition for the same commercial or same show and something like that. And you just, I worked and worked and worked, and then you get to do something like Monster Squad, which is very cool, and it leads to other stuff.
I got 2 stories. I mean, I've been in this business for about 40 years. But there are 2 stories that sum up how I got in, why I got in, and then sort of why I stayed. I started acting when I was in college. I went to Dartmouth College. And I tried out for the swim team, and all I saw were bubbles in front of me. Meaning they were long, tall guys who were about 2 lengths ahead of me. I just saw bubbles. I got cut from the freshman baseball team after thinking I was a great catcher. And then I started to act in plays. And later, I asked a friend of mine who's killed everybody in television and movies. He's a major killer. And I said to him, Billy, why did you get into this? He said, truth? He looked at me with deadpan, said, some asshole clapped. Which is, at the time when I was in college, that was probably the reason. After failing at swimming and baseball, I started to do little jobs as an actor, and people were clapping. And so the ego is easily assuaged. But after a while, it becomes more than just that. It becomes a craft. And I think one of the stories that really brought it home to me that it better be a craft was I had just finished a Broadway show, my first Broadway show, in which I played maybe 11 parts. It was a show called Vivat Regina, starring Claire Bloom. And I played the Scotch gentleman, the jailer. I played all kinds of different parts, only one part with 9 lines. This is how, and I felt it was terrific. I did that, and I wore a vest in that with, I don't know, many of you, some of the old people here will remember, Richard Widmark. Well, Richard Widmark was one of the greatest killer actors ever, American actor. And I wore his vest that he had wore once in a Western. A month later, I got to be in a scene with Richard Widmark, who was playing a detective, I think it was called Madigan, in New York, detective. And all I had to do was, I was a nurse's assistant in a hospital. I had to come up at the nurse's station, and he said to me, "Where's so-and-so?" And all I had to do was say, "This way," and point the way he was supposed to walk in front of me, down a corridor, and I was supposed to walk in back of him. And Gordon Parks, who was a wonderful black director, a great director, was the director cast me in this role. And so he says, "Okay, action. So when Mark says to me like this, where am I supposed to go? And I looked at him and I go, geez, I'm acting with Richard. I'm thinking, instead of,
Right.
go over there, I'm thinking, shit, I'm here with Richard Mark. Can you imagine that? I was just wearing his vest. And he looked at me, Steve, and I said, oh, that way. And as he walked out in front of me, I stepped on the back of his heel. Right towards the camera. Gordon Parks looked at me, he said, kid, you're going to be just fine. You just let him walk in front of you, you point, don't say anything, just point, and when he walks in front of you, you just walk in the back of him. Just learn to hit your marks, stand up straight, and walk after him. You'll be fine. I thought, there's more to this job than being full of your ego, and I better learn more about it. So anyway, that's a story about it. Awesome.
There is more to it. Absolutely. It's crazy.
Which genres are easier?
Depends what kind of TV. I mean, if you're doing like a sitcom, that's like doing a play, it's continuous. I mean, they stop, and move on to the next scene. But if you're doing a movie, like, you say like, go over there! And then cut! All right, go back to your trailer for like 3 hours. So, film is, it depends on what kind of film you're doing. But
Yeah, no, and then I think like you go over there and you go somewhere for, then like 4 days later you got to come back and it's right after you just said go over there and you're like, okay, what was I doing? How was it? Movies are tough, and Steve's been in a lot more, features and long stuff. You have to. It's average nowadays. People make movies really, really quickly. You can make a full-length feature in like 2 weeks now. But back in the day, average 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. You've got to be that guy when you show up from 8 to 8, whatever, or 8 till 8 a.m. stay, and be that person. So you kind of got to keep it together. And when you watch films that you know have shot for, something that's epic, like I don't know, Lord of the Rings or something, where you're just that's got to be crazy. But yeah, sitcoms are kind of like doing a play every night, bang bang. Dramas are kind of the same, but movies are totally different. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. For me, I was a stage actor and always a stage actor. And I have had difficulty over my sort of working career bringing my emotions and my movements and all of my inner working down. The camera sees everything. You can't see. When you're in the back here, if I'm on the stage, I've got to project. I have a microphone, but I can deal without this microphone. I can reach you in the back and you can hear me because I have that kind of personality. I have a personality that wants to reach out there. Well, most of the great screen or television have something whereby you might not be but a camera, microphone, can pick up everything. They don't need major. You want to go to the stage? Go and act on stage because stuff is much bigger. And in order to be perceived by an audience, I've got to relate to you in a different way. It doesn't mean that I am not feeling the emotions and thinking the thoughts of the character. But it has to do with the aesthetic distance in which I'm trying to reach you on camera. I lose all that big stuff. And I've had a lot of trouble doing that because I like those films, especially in horror films that allow you to do more of that. It's just more of it. Television is even smaller. Because in feature films, usually there's a big backdrop and there's a lot more action going on instead of just talking heads, which is the province of television, for the most part. That's why they did in the 70s, 80s, a little of the 90s, diseases of the week were the part and parcel of television, TV movies, which they don't do anymore, because it was all about the thoughts. Not so in features. In features is a much bigger screen and there's a lot much more action, so you can afford to be bigger. Anyway, I'm still wrestling with that as an actor. the difference between the three mediums.
And it's a big, and if you start out in TV and you don't know those things and go back and forth, I have two stories that I've related, a couple times on the same thing, because you're brought it up and bringing it down. You really do have to bring it down when you're talking about acting for a camera, and that's why people teach classes about on camera, because it's totally different. I was doing a series with none other than George C. Scott, who's a pretty large presence in a room. You could put a muffler on him and hear him in the back, and you could feel his stare. And it was a comedy, but it was single camera. That makes any difference, unlike the 3-camera sitcom, which we ended up switching to. But I'm 14. This is just after Monster Squad's a new series, and it's a single camera. And when you do coverage, we're doing George's close-up, and I just got done doing mine. So I'm standing right. The camera's right here. I do my lines here, and I was moving like. When you do that, you learn you just stand still and read. You're just reading the lines. So this guy on camera's got it. I played sports all my life, and you mess up and coaches yell at you. You forget to mow the lawn, your dad yells at you. I have never been cussed out. Like I got cussed out by George C. Scott one day in front of 75 people. And I'm like, dude, I'm in accents. What are you talking about? But I was like, okay, this is my George C. Scott was. Stop! Hold it! God damn you, motherfucker! You quit moving around! Shit on the mouth! So I think the effect was right, because I didn't move for about an hour. But that's one of those things, because I was distracting him. But then when I got around, my dude can't move. Same show, a little bit later, 3-camera audience, you're talking about television, even bigger. That's you. And you can't get real muggy on camera. You can't do a lot of facial stuff. You can't move this way. And this was interesting because we had a director. His name was Mark Daniels, and he was like the director on the 2nd season of I Love Lucy. So like he had invented the sitcom or something, right? And he was literally like, I don't know, 115 or 116 when we were doing this show. And really nice, sweet guy. And he took me over. He called me out of the schoolroom or dressing room or up to the other building. And he was like, sit down. And I want to show you something. And it was in the editing bay, which is kind of cool. Like, this is your scene. And you have like 6 lines in the scene with George and a great actor named Eugene Roach, a great comedy actor named Eugene. And they're going back and forth because they're playing brothers. And it's this whole thing, and I just have kind of these reaction looks and kind of these pipe-in lines that are the little stingers in the scene. And Mark Daniels says, now watch your camera, because in 3-camera you got one camera for yourself and they cut back to you. And he goes, I can't use any of it. What? He's like, this is a great scene for you, and you have all the lines, and I can't use one of them. And he goes, watch. And that's what he spoke. I'm not back. He was like, just always like, now watch. Run around, and I'm doing all these fake, and it came right here. So it's a perfect example of learning something like that. Whereas I got taught by George C. Scott not to move on a close-up, and I got taught by Mark Daniels not to mug when your camera's close-up on you. Because yeah, you look like a clown, and you're doing all the stuff, and you do these reactions, and you're like, what? Like you would do in a conversation. You can't do that. And I wasn't even in that scene, and I had more lines than anyone in the scene. It was like, cut. I can't use them. So that was a learning experience that other people may get over time, and I got in like 20 minutes of,
You guys liked this film, or you wouldn't be here. What was it for you? What was it for you all these years?
You have a bigger Oscar?
well, he got to kill them all, damn it.
I hate it all.
Yeah.
Now, the guy that played the mummy, what was his name?
I think it was Michael. Yeah.
That guy was cool. But there's a scene in the clubhouse where we're all talking to Frankenstein for the first time. And they didn't need the rest of the cast. They just needed to do an over-the-shoulder shot of me. So I just needed to be there for his reference point. And then they were they were lighting the scene and getting ready to shoot it. Very tight quarters. We were all kind of cramped in this clubhouse. It was a lot smaller than it looks like on film. And I was, I'm sitting there and I'm waiting, and Tom Newman is sitting like right here, dressed as Frankenstein. And I went, so how's it going? How are you? He's like, and I'm like, dude, I'm 15. I know you're not Frankenstein. He wouldn't drop it. It just sat right across me, staring at me as Frankenstein. I'm like, now I appreciate it. Now I'm like, wow,
But back then,
that's serious method acting. Back then, I was like, this guy's a dick.
well, he wouldn't be seen not in full Frankenstein makeup around us as his thing, as his and so I had to go rent Manhunter while we were shooting to see what this dude looked like. And I was like, oh yeah, keep the makeup on, keep the makeup on. No, but it was like, because you wouldn't, that was the first time, but he wouldn't be even near you. We'd show up, do the thing, and you're the one that only really had any other interaction with them, and it didn't work. And it didn't work. Personally, I think, I've always been a Creature with a Black Lagoon fan, just was cool, and I think our Creature was pretty bitchin'. It was really neat, and it was literally, all the other makeup was great. Like Tom Newman was like 4 hours a day. He did makeup, and Duncan was like 2. Who, by the way, I think we do have the best Dracula. Almost in the new Dracula movie, I think.
I don't know, but it's really was pretty bad.
No, I said, oh, I didn't say that. I said, oh, he writes up. I'm not the only one that said that, too, I think, which is good. But the Creature was kind of cool. That was a full latex foam suit that Tom Woodruff was in, got zipped up and glued in, and not coming out of it until like you undo it. And that was crazy, but they're all the classic monsters, so it was kind of cool.
I enjoyed Wolfman because he was the only guy I really came in contact with. He beat the
And you
shit
blew him
out
up.
of me.
He beat you up and blew him up.
In one scene, he just beat the shit out of me, really. He didn't do it, but he was there. They had a stunt guy. And John, the actor, was he's really a fine actor. He works all the time. And I remember I had my young son, who is now 29. He was 4 years old. I told the story to some of you who wanted the signature. He was there in the scene behind the camera when I was shooting the scene with Wolfman, and Wolfman was beating me up, and then finally I get him in the position, I stick a dynamite down his pants and throw him out the window. The explosion happens, and Jesse looked up at me, and I said, come on, Jesse, we're going to go outside now because Wolfman's going to come back together again. He looked at me, he was 4 years old, he crowded out, and we saw one arm come back and another arm come back, and he looked at me. He said, Daddy, how'd they do that? So, cut. 20 years later, he's on the street, and he sees John, the Wolfman, walking in the street. So he walked up to John and said, look, my father would really not be happy if I didn't say hello, because I saw you when I was 4 years old. He says, who's your father? He said, Stephen Mock. He said, tell him, they're gonna kill your kid. Anyway.
There's a great story with John, and right after, I killed the Wolfman, so I say, bang, and then I shoot. And then he says, thank you. When we were shooting that scene, he turned Fred after I said bang, and he says, the kid's saying bang before he shoots the gun. And Fred goes, yeah, it's in the screenplay. he's saying his line. He goes, oh, that's weird. And then Fred goes, no, it's awesome.
I don't know, because I think it calls the suit. But the scene where you are getting beaten up and then blow them up, this is it's always funny because Fred remembers it, and I come in, I don't know if you remember, I think everybody's seen it, but I come in and I hit him in the face with a baseball bat. And I don't know if you remember this or not, But I came in and I was an imaginative kid, and I played, so when I come in with this bat, it's a foam bat, and Fred's like, okay, don't hit him, but come, come as close as you can, it's on this side of the camera, no effects, whatever. I was like, okay, just pull it, hey asshole, when you look, whatever. And then I hit him, let's just come back and you take me down the show. And so we do the first take, and I go up and I pop in the scene and I go, hey asshole, you look, and I go, thanks, cut. He said, you don't have to make the sound of it hitting him. And I went, oh, wait. He's like, yeah, don't do that. We'll take care of that later. And I was like, oh,
Like,
damn it. Yeah, I was like, oh man, sorry. And I just remember it reverting right back to like me being in the backyard playing with, lightsaber or whatever. So when I was on the set, that was such a amateur move. I was like, yeah, what? Oh, I messed up, my bad.
And then George Scott came in.
And then George Scott came and punched me, yeah. You had a question.
Oh, I heard that Anthony Mann pretty afraid.
Well, they were afraid of all of them because she was 4,
Yeah.
and they were real.
Yeah.
I was actually standing right there when she did that scene. I was standing off to the side. And her mom, they were like, listen, we're not going to candy coat this. Like, Duncan is not going to talk to her beforehand. It's okay. Dracula's going to walk over to her and grab her by the face and call her a bitch. And her mom was like, oh yeah, whatever. She's going to cry, but whatever. She was great.
She's great. But yeah, I mean, can you imagine? She was 4 or 5 years old. It's a lot to comprehend, I think, to one beyond there. And she's a champ throughout the whole movie. I mean, she's got some of the better lines than almost anybody. But she troopered right through, and then that payoff scene. I think it's tough, and sometimes she still remembers that. She remembers that day.
They had her on a lift. Right. Just grabbed her, and I just saw her face and thought, here we go. Here we go. And he says it. That scream, that's tape 1.
That ain't acting.
Yeah, she screamed. And that was it. They were like, cut, and they ushered her away. And I think Fred, they were, Duncan, can you go over? And he was like,
But I think, and Ashley's a great draw at conventions like this because everybody's usually there, and she's older and she's grown up now. But I think she would have come, but she got married this weekend actually, so she's not here. So everybody say hi to Ashley. This was good. Yes.
Somebody said to me, who was asking for the signature, I think it was a great line. He said, well, I'm not going to ask her for her autograph anymore. She's not a virgin anymore.
So like the rumors been going around the internet that Rob's doing a remake for the past 2 years. One, how do you feel about that? Because I don't think they could make it any better. And then 2, would you try to get a cameo in it if you could?
Well, yes, I guess Rob Cohen was actually a young producer on this movie. It was one of the first things he produced in his earliest career. Now he's Rob Cohen, a lot of big studio movies, and I guess he announced a couple years ago that they were going to remake The Monster Squad. This things take a while, so I think they now have a finished script to start working, going the next step, but don't know much about it. How do I feel about it? I know they can't make a movie today for kids with kids doing the stuff that we did because you're not allowed to, which I think will still keep our movie pretty cool.
The dialogue in Monster Squad is pretty on PC.
You're smoking and we're shooting stuff, and like some guy in a cape dynamite 6 kids supposedly. I mean, that ain't gonna get made today. So I don't know what they're gonna do. And then of course the interesting thing I was having a conversation doing a podcast interview this morning. It was an interesting time in movies because we were right at the pinnacle of man-made. And we're in the analog digital mix era. It was like 4 or 5 years of Monster Squad, actually. And so you have these great creature features, animatronics, and Stan Winston doing stuff. And that's really at the peak of that with the beginning of, kind of the more of the digital stuff. I don't know how much actual makeup and creature stuff they're going to do, or if it's going to be all digital, or so that's why I think a lot of people are like, I think most monster fans are, don't touch this thing, leave it alone, we will kill you. But hopefully they take some of that into consideration. Don't know anything about being in, haven't been contacted, don't know anything about it, so it's, we'll see.
I'd like to read the script. I was asked this question maybe whenever we went down to Comic-Con, and we had a screening and a similar question and answer. From my point of view, I don't think they can remake it. Not the way it was made, because I think children are totally different. I think that was a totally different age where the idealism and the romance and the adventure of kids fighting the monsters, that was one thing. I think this day and age, I saw one kid here, and certainly at another convention, I saw him come up and wear the mask of whatever that guy's name, Jason the Killer. I feel the kids today of that age are the monsters. I think if they make it from the point of view, we need to see them as Dracula, Frankenstein, whatever. I think it's a totally different age. We were still on the cusp of a very romantic and idyllic time for children. I'm not so sure that is the point of view of this age. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my take on it.
At first, when someone said, "Oh, by the way, they're remaking the Monster Squad," I was like, wow, "That's fucking stupid." I was like, "Whatever, that's lame." And then I was actually in LA and I was hanging out with Fred, and I said, "Oh, what about this? They're gonna remake it." And he said, "You know what? I can't wait to see it." And I was like, "You know what? You're right. I totally want to see them do this and try to do this again."
For what end?
Just whatever they do, just go for it.
Right.
Do it. Let me see. Fred was basically saying, like, I want to watch that. I want to, like, he wasn't being an asshole about it. He wasn't saying, like, oh yeah, go ahead. Right. Let's see. He was like, I'd like to watch that. Let's see that.
But it's also a compliment. It's a compliment to the picture. All these remakes mean they think there's an audience out there that's going to, it wouldn't get made. They don't think that there's an audience out there that's going to pay for it. And one of the things that was a shame during our time was they put a PG rating on our movie and stopped a lot of the kids from coming in to see it. And it took a generation, and Andre and a lot of other people pushing to get this film really to be seen by many people. It wasn't. It came for a moment and died in the movie house. And for a movie to get made now, again, especially with a Rob Cohn in back of it, he's got to think that he can make it in such a way that there are going to be millions of kids that come in there and see it. I don't think they will make that mistake again in terms of how they rate it. I think all of that, but I certainly like to see it.
I think you made a good point with that it's a compliment to the original concept and film, and that compliment goes to the people that made it, wrote it, everybody that's in it, and it's kind of a collective thing there. But what's ironic with Monster Squad, I think, is I think the other half of that compliment goes, they're not remaking the Monster Squad because it did well in the theaters, like Steven said. They're remaking Monster Squad because of the original Monster Squad fans that came out of the woodwork in 06, 07. Because the fans created the DVD, and especially that wouldn't have happened either without you guys coming to us like, holy crap, we now have somewhere to go for one of our favorite films. And I don't know of any other film that's been, a DVD's been made by a big studio with a special edition that they just, oh, let's do that now, it's time. It's because the fans demanded it. It was, talk about grassroots, that's really kind of, that's movie house seed roots right there.
Was that when you realized that film had that impact?
I think on the scale, yeah, I think there's always some, a little bit there, because as you, like, for me, this is just my point of view, you go through those years in the next couple decades of growing up, going to college, working, things like that, you find people that know it, like, oh, the movie was great. You start doing reunion screenings like that one, and then you guys come out like that, then you realize, and that first year when it just went nuts, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then build up like that. And the DVD. Does anybody have the DVD? Because a lot of people still couldn't get the DVD because they're sold out so fast. Lionsgate went through 3 production presses of that movie in like 10, 12 days. Because they sold out of the first press in like 72 hours. And they sold out of the second press like the next 3 or 4 days. And then they went to a third one. And then they're like, okay. So everybody waited 20 years to get a DVD, and they still couldn't get one because they got sold out. So it's a commodity. It's a precious item.
I did one of these conventions. It was only the third that I've ever done, but not the last one. The first one I did. Father and his son come up to me to sign. You were there. He says, "This is the best." The father says, "This is the best movie my kid has ever seen." I said, "Is it really?" He said, "Yeah, look at this." The kid pulls up his leg. He must have been 14, 15. Pulls up his leg. And on his right leg is tattooed every monster that was in the movie. His whole leg was tattooed. And I looked at him and I said, "Whoa! You really like that movie, didn't you?" I mean, 15 years old. So, and then somebody this time said, my kid is 3 years old. I'm going to let him see it in a year. And I've got something now to give to him. So, believe us, we never thought it would be that kind of well, it was a cult classic, but it has become some kind of a classic, which is passed down through the generations, which is really very flattering to any actor, anybody who had anything to do with that movie. It's a really good feeling to be part of that.
You guys have any memories of or stories about
Everybody knows Brent, that played Fat Kid Horace, died in 95, 94, 95. He was 22, 23, something like that. And I hadn't seen him in years because I was actually off in college when that happened. And a lot of people don't know that Ryan was a year or so older than I am, and then it was me, and then Robbie's a year or two younger than me. But Brent was a lot younger than most of us on the set. He was like 11 on the set or something. So he was very fresh, very green, very new, and I almost think that's what works in the movie because I'm never carry. He's just so sweet. It's not, and that's how he was. He was a nice kid. I think it was different because Ryan and I had worked quite a bit prior to this movie. So this is okay, show up, do stuff, it's a big movie. And Brent was brand new, so it was almost, I don't say fish out of water, but you're 10, 11 years old on this big movie set, some different stuff. So you have teenagers together, and it's it's a whole different thing. And
Do you know where this is going?
No, I'm just saying it's. We had a hard. Huh?
Oh, I used to razz the shit out of that kid.
Yeah, we used to. Look, you put 5 young teenagers in a room together. It's like putting 5 kids in 5th or 6th grade, 7th grade in detention together. So jokes are going to happen, go around. Brent had because he was younger. Ryan and I are older, and we used to. It didn't go so well with Brent at very, very early on. And so we actually we got a talking to by the producers. It's like, all right, you guys gotta, when we were 13, I was talking to him. And we didn't get a George C. Scott, which was good, but we had a talking to. It was like, okay, look, I think it was just you and me in that trailer.
Fred was like, the scene when you come up and save him from the 2 bullies? Yeah, he's like, you're the bully. Right. Leave him alone. Guys to jump out of the yeah.
And I think it had to do with him being a little young and a little, a lot to comprehend, for something like that. If you're not used to being on a set, a lot of stuff going on. But so I think we kind of, it took a talking to understand a little bit. It's like, okay, let's help him along instead of, kind of dragging him along.
And were you in touch with him through the years? Did anybody?
It stayed until I went to college, which was 2 years ago. No, I did for a few years, and we'd come to my birthday party. I always had a birthday party at my house. We'd all hang out, but he wasn't really in that business, like in the industry clique, and he worked some stuff after, but we would do all the press stuff, he was there, and then come to birthday parties and invite him and come over, and then I went to college and I didn't have a lot of contact with him through high school. And then I went off to college, and that's when he ended up passing away, which was totally unfortunate because I think Horace at a convention would rock. And no one may come up to him if he was there. He would be so great, and I think he would love it. I think he would have probably loved it and said, "Whoa, these people really like this." So it's really, really unfortunate. But he's a great part of the movie.
Anybody else?
I'm just curious about how maybe you're using the tone of the movie and evolved. Because on some aspects, it's really kind of an adult movie, like the parents getting divorced, this very German guy, kind of a Holocaust survivor, and the kids all saying shit, and we talk it. So it's a two-kid movie for adults, sort of.
That's why they won't.
That's what happened.
Again.
That's why they wanted,
And
yeah.
that's kind of good. I think some of the reasons why we like, I wondered if reviews are all like, maybe you could notice as a kid, and now you're sort of older.
Well, that was a good thing about Fred's dialogue, because that's how I talked. You know what I mean? Like, he knew, he really tapped into like what kids said back then. He did his homework, he knew.
And he used to be. What do you remember that girl at that one screen that asked that question? And she had to have. Not that there's anything wrong with coming right out of a, political science class at the university, but literally, it seems like she just came out of her college class dealing with like pop culture and how bad things are. And she asked, she goes, this is to Fred, and she was like, do you regret or something, feel bad about, using the language and the words and the derogatory terms that the other kids talk to the other kids, like Horace and the little girl and the monsters in between each other? And we had never had a question like that. And Fred looked at her and said, I mean, have you ever been a 13-year-old boy? She didn't respond. He goes, that's how 13-year-old boys talk. And I wasn't going to write a movie about 13-year-old boys that don't act like 13-year-old boys. I mean, they're all in a clubhouse. And I don't know if most people realize that it's supposed to be in the original script. We're in the clubhouse, and Ashley comes in, like one of our 2 clubhouse scenes. When it was a joke when the tractor gun, we're all reading the comic, like monster magazines, and then we put them away and hidden Playboys, is what was originally in the script. And I was like, this is what 13-year-old boys do. All of us 13-year-old, we've all been 13-year-old boys. Well, half of us have been 13-year-old boys. We know what we're talking about. And Fred was very surprised about that. And so I think he stung her on that one. There's a great response because he said, I don't know if have you ever been a 13-year-old boy? So don't ask stupid questions. I think it's what but yeah, I don't, like you said, that's why they're not going to be able to remake it in a way, but I think that's also why this will stay as cool as it is.
Like what Steve was saying, it's one of the reasons I think people love the movie.
Yeah.
That is sort of an offbeat tone. It's not in a lot of, at first I thought it was a monster, I like it was a monster. Then you realize that, so these fake monsters versus real monsters, like parents getting divorced, all stuff, and it really, you're really involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of other, right, you grow up being like, oh, a 10-year-old's not going to know anything about a scary German guy being in a camp with a tattoo on his arm. That's a good, good catch, not that's a good catch, but it's a good catch to mention that. Because there's a lot of stuff in that movie stuff going on. Family issues, job requirements, stuff's going down, I've got to go, you don't understand, something's, all this, I'm caught in the middle, it was almost a Lifetime. That one scene's almost like a Lifetime movie. You're sitting there, it's, the poor kid, like, the blinds of his parents arguing, but, it's all for good, but, yeah, it's...
My parents had to probably sometime after it, and then when the DVD came out, I see this, cut scene. We would have had, 4 minutes of just the parents.
Right, there was more of your scenes.
It was very interesting when I did that. That one scene was probably the heaviest scene for me, written in the script. We went at it. Mary Ellen Trainer and I really went at it. And I remember really showing up and thinking, geez, this is going to be a great scene. You know? So I went at it, and we did it. And when I saw it, cut, and I thought to myself, schmuck, it's not about you, it's about the kid. And that was what made it good, is that you didn't see it. You saw it from the point of view of a kid looking through the door. But he had it, he wrote it. And it's a kid's movie. It's not an adult movie. It's a kid's movie, and it had real roots to it, so that you got the feeling, this is not just a schmucky film that does not have a real reality base to it. And I thought that was part of the genius of it.
And I think what plays into that part that you just mentioned is, if anybody's ever watched or read or seen anything that Fred Decker's wrote or done, Fred's a phenomenal mind and knows a ton about movies and a ton about history and historical films and TV shows. So he has a lot of accurate, really cool stuff that he brings into it. And then someone like Shane Black, we've all heard of Shane Black now. This is the first thing that Shane Black ever wrote that got done. If you ever watched a two-person scene between Shane Black, you know you're watching a Shane Black two-person dialogue scene. And they don't pull punches, and they put stuff in there, and they make it, gritty and hard. But the perspective part, yeah, it's a perfect point. But yeah, they're just not writing some let's go over here movie of the week type thing. They put some stuff in it. And what I think is cool is during Monster Squad, Shane Black learned that Lethal Weapon got bought and was going to get made during our production. So we were like, oh, that's really cool. What's Lethal Weapon? And he's like, oh, it's about a cop, and it's Buddy, and he's like kind of this renegade. I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll see. But like I said, I think Shane Black is the best two-person dialogue kind of writer out there. If you've ever seen his other movies like Long Kiss Goodnight, Last Boy Scout, it's all kind of that same dual lead character to each other. That's the original Shane Black two-person scene with him and his black cop partner. How many times have you seen that, Shane Black? That's it. And that scene between those two guys, that's a hilarious scene. And him and Dan Shaw are great when he's just sitting, he's like, I have no idea when guys are flying through our window in the prison. My partner comes up and is like, hey, you on the plane? So are you excited? I'm excited. I mean, that's that Night of the Creeps, Tom Atkins, Shane Black going back and forth. And that's a great scene. And then you're in the car, and then he gets blown up. And oh shit! But see a lot, yeah. That two-person buddy action picture. That's where all that came from. That's that. There, he's in the original scene. That's it. That's Shane Black. Black was right there, and they're great. They should have been in the way.
Iron Man 3 is going to be so deep.
Yeah. Shane Black's directing Iron Man 3. I'm sure it's good for him, because he was kind of disappeared in a pariah for a while, but he came back strong with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is a great movie. Another great two-person buddy dialogue movie.
You think along those lines, when it comes to maturity level film, kind of kids films they have nowadays, do you think it's a thing, or do you think it's the culture is becoming walk on kind of culture? They can't handle it.
No, I think they can I think kids can handle it. People won't let them handle it. I think there's maybe a smidge too much. Oh no, don't touch that. Oh no, we can't listen to that. Don't listen to that. Which I think leads to more problems later. You only put your hand on the hot stove once. You learn. It's good. You might have perspective on that. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think that it would be allowed. I really don't. And I mean, knowing Hollywood now, they wouldn't just put the kibosh on it immediately.
But do you think it's because this whole thing of media, whatever it is, video games, TV shows, or movies, are so impressionable, or make such an impression that they actually make people do stuff?
Yeah, I think it does. I think, I saw this movie. Any of you see Hannah? Did you see that movie, Hannah? What's that movie about? That kid is a teenager. She's what, 13, 14? She's trained to be a killer. Better than her father, better than the CIA woman who trained the father. And I think that that's, look, in the business that I have been in so far, the percentage of audience members has gotten younger and younger and younger because more kids want to go see movies. And if you look, I find for the kinds of movies that they're looking at, it's not the kind that we made. It's more, they are the center of it, and almost in an adult way, they're getting into it. That's at least my take. Now, you see many more movies than I do. Yes, Jeff?
What about Super 8? The Spielberg movie?
They tried. That was a good attempt.
Monster Squad.
It was, a lot of people said that, and I think it was a good attempt.
But watch Hunger Games.
There.
Like, this is not how these kids talk. Like, imagine if, like, you know, I'm going to use a dirty word right now, which I don't really want to say, but just to make a point. Imagine if PETA called another character a faggot. Like,
But in Hunger
Games, I mean, you might be shocked, but you're like, oh, well, that's how people talk. I mean, that's how kids talk, or at least that's what we said in the 80s. You know, when he calls him a faggot in the movie, he's not actually calling him gay. That's just a word. That was a derogatory statement towards another person, and that's how kids talk. We just don't see that anymore. And it's not necessarily like you don't need it. It's not, but that's why you couldn't make Monster Squad now like you could then. It's impossible.
I think it may tie in because you make a great point with that era. It was the fantasy, the adventure, the almost romance of the adventure.
There was a bit of Disney still left in terms of how we saw the world. I think we see the world in a much more jaundiced, real politic, so to speak. But again, you're younger than I am. I don't know. I think that point that you brought up, the Hunger Games. You know, what's that about? What is that movie about? Where does Monster Squad fit in Hunger Games? For that, and who's going to see that? Who goes to see that? Everyone is going to see that movie. So, yeah. Kids are dying to get in. I mean, 12, 13, 14-year-olds. It's about them, isn't it? So,
You guys like the Hunger Games?
I thought the subject was phenomenal. I wanted to be blown away by it.
I read all 3 books and I saw the first movie. I can't wait for the next one. But
Sure.
at the same time, after I watched it, I left the theater. I was like, I didn't think about it too much afterwards. It didn't really leave me with anything. The books I thought were, many, many holes in the book, but it didn't give me that feeling I saw Close Encounters or E.T. You know what I mean? It didn't give me that
I really wanted it to.
I wanted it to. I thought it was going to be.
And I think Monster Squad does. And I think the point of your adventure and romance is a great point because we do this stuff, regularly and constantly at every show or every screening. Someone comes up and goes, "Hey man, I just want to let you know, one, this is my authentic, but me and my buddies were the Monster Squad in Murfreesboro, or we were the Monster Squad in Orlando. We went around our neighborhood and we were you guys." I think maybe today, if they wanted to get a squad together, they'd actually be going around and staking somebody on a bridge high on bath salts.
That's a great point. My kid,
It was fantasy.
My kid had a group of friends, and they called themselves. My kid who's now 40 used to call himself and his group the Awesome Foursome. You think you got kids now who call themselves the Awesome Foursome?
It's a creativity, imagination. I think imagination is almost gone. Is the problem, and we're just getting it, mainlined as Soylent Green of what you're going to be creative on or something. So
that's not to say that we don't appreciate the fact that many of you want to give this film on to your children or people that you know. But I think that's part of a wish fulfillment, a memorial to it. I don't think that's the way we deal in life anymore. I might be wrong. Anyway, they said we got one more
maybe we can
question.
champion and pass it along. I like your idea. Keep it going. Keep it going.
One more question. They said.
Do you guys have an experience where you watch the movie with someone and they haven't seen it before? heard, like, have you seen the movie so many times, you never even think you should show this movie to, a young kid you maybe that's new in your mind?
I tried to show Monster Squad to my girlfriend. She's like, I don't want to. I'm like, no, it's amazing. Watch.
You probably better because you have two younger boys that were made, so that's a different experience too. Yeah.
I think they've seen it, haven't they, Suzanne? Yeah.
One was too bad.
Yeah, one guy who is now 11, when we wanted to show it to him when he was probably 8, he was too frightened, but a very timid soul he is. And I think now I'm trying to show it to him. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.